really like sound. I don't know if people realize things in videos that they watch, but sound quality, whew. Welcome back, guys. Another video for you that's gonna live on YouTube that you can refer back to anytime you like and learn some things about doing the open, when to do the open, why to do the open, how to help you through the open, and more specifically towards competitive athletes. But I bet some people who like to do the open for fun could learn a few things. So let's get to it. All right, starting right off the bat, a lot of people have the question of when should I do the open? So the open comes out Thursday afternoon now, noon Pacific, and then use your time after that, wherever you live in the world. And some of you guys will have an opportunity to do the open Thursday evening if you like. You could do it Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and even a redo on Monday, or some variance in there, depending on what you've achieved in the past or what your overall goal is and what you want to get to, whether that's going to quarterfinals, semifinals, or the CrossFit Games. You have to decide when it's most optimal to do your open attempt. So for me and our athletes, I put the open in on Friday just as a placeholder. That's not set in stone. That's just so we can organize the week and know what we're doing throughout the week. It's totally up to you, and we shuffle those days around. Now the programming itself gets lined up the way we do it around the open, what the movements are, things that we are working on in training. Most of the athletes are gonna train through the open, but if the open is your competition, I would recommend you not training through the open, doing things that can prep you for more movements that we haven't seen that are typically in the open, like toes to bar, double unders, bar facing burpees. You'll see those often in the open. So if they don't come up in the week, you would want to train those, get a little bit faster, build some more volume. But for most of us that I coach, we're going to be training for quarterfinals and semifinals. So now you have to decide for you when to do the open. Well, what we like to talk about is your readiness or your ready state. Training can beat you down a little bit, and if we're training through the open, you can feel pretty beat up. So doing the open, you have to kind of feel ready, and you may feel ready Thursday, you may feel ready Friday, and that's totally fine. Just decide what that feeling is, how you felt in the past historically with training. Some of you guys might have some data from before when you've hit PRs on Fridays, or you really like throwing down on Saturday, and that would be a good time to insert the open workout. So depending on what type of athlete you are, if that's an open athlete or quarterfinals, semis, or the games, that could dictate when you're gonna do the open. Also, if you're a master's athlete or a team athlete, could also dictate it. Let's start with teams, because I think this is something that gets oversight for a lot of people. How you get to quarters as a team is dictated by the open. So it's actually really important for team athletes to go very hard in the open, because you don't know until the close of the first open workout the percentage of teams that are signed up. So because it is 25%, let's just say 100 teams are signed up, that means 25 teams are gonna go to quarterfinals. If that number is really low, it's gonna be more challenging to get into quarterfinals. If the number is really big, then this conversation doesn't really matter. If you're fit enough, you guys will probably make it in. But we have to evaluate that as the signups happen and the end of the first open workout happens, so we can look at what you have to do to qualify for the quarters. Let's just say it's pretty tight. Like last year was 80 teams in North America, for example. That's a small amount of teams based on the 25% that are gonna qualify to quarters. With anyone being able to be on the roster, being games athletes, masters athletes, the pool is so much larger and talent is bigger that you might really have to put in a lot of effort to qualify your team into quarters. So that may look like you setting up the optimal day for your open attempt, and even doing a redo, depending on what things look like and you feel or your team is talking about to do a redo. If you're a master's athlete who is just trying to get to quarters, you're probably in the same boat where you need to do the workouts more than once. Or again, you have a small percentage of qualification numbers. You also have to optimize when you're gonna do the open and how many times you're going to do it, and communicate with your coach, because you're under the gun and you definitely have to put forth a large amount of intensity. Some athletes are not in those categories at all. They've gone into age group online qualifiers, they've gone to team regionals or sanctionals or semifinals in the past, and so they know that their fitness is high enough that they're just going to bypass that system and go right into quarters, and maybe quarters is their competition, and that's totally fine. For those athletes, you could do the workout almost Thursday night, if you know that you're going to make it to quarters or semis or the games for that matter, and get it out of the way and continue on with the rest of your training. That is a good strategy. It eliminates anxiety and other things, as long as you can keep yourself regulated in a state where you know what you can do. You're going to go in, execute, there are no problems, and you have no video errors, judging errors, movement quality errors, or execution errors, and you're just good to go. That's not all of us, so I would highly recommend not doing it Thursday night. It can be very stressful and strenuous. Sometimes you could get in the hype, watching the open announcement and then watching some people in the gym do it, and then get sucked into that and not be ready, not be rested, recovered, hydrated, or have your nutrition on point that day, and then have a bad score and have to redo it anyways. So highly recommend not doing that if you haven't had historical data where you know that you're going to perform and outperform most people in the open. So those are the main types of athletes. The next thing would be stressors and anxiety. If you feel stressed out about the open just generally or competing, you want to learn how to temper those things, and maybe setting up for like a Friday morning attempt would be pretty good. Watch the open announcement. Try not to think about it too much. If it helps you, write down your game plan, communicate to your coach, and then just step away from that and then go into the gym the next day and hit it hard. Prolonging that first attempt may create more stress and anxiety than you actually need. So try to nip it in the bud and do it right away. Some of you guys work full-time jobs, or almost all competitive athletes in CrossFit work full-time jobs, and your work week might be very stressful along with your training, and so it may not be optimal to do Friday Night Lights. You know, you might want to take that rest period and do it on a Saturday in the middle of the day, or even in the afternoon on a Saturday, so you can get some recovery, sleep in Saturday morning. Talk to your gym owner if you're really trying to make it far within the competitive season. Figure out how you can do that and optimize your rest, because whether you feel that way or not, work is stressful, doing the training is stressful, and then trying to put in a maximal effort after a full week of training and stress may not be the best idea for some of you guys. If you have a high stress job, you might even want to push it to Sunday if you know that you're only going to do it one time and you're going to clear that 10% or the 25% for the teams. So that's also an option as well. Don't be afraid of taking more rest and eliminating the stress and anxiety from the other jobs, tasks, and duties in your life. For those of you guys who I coach, just note that I do put the workout in on Friday just as a placeholder, and typically Thursday is either rest or some movement work or aerobic work. Don't feel locked into that plan. Okay, you can move that around however you want as long as you communicate, and most of you guys out there definitely probably have it programmed on Friday or Saturday. Don't feel so locked into that plan and get rigid, because that can also create some stress and anxiety. You can move that around however you like. Just communicate it and make sure that I know, or your coach knows, when you're doing the workout and your attempt. Have your game plan already written up, send that over. Do your attempt, send over the video, your debrief, schedule a call, and we can work through those things. But don't get so locked in when you see it scheduled that day. And even if you're a normal gym goer and like you have a Friday Night Lights or a Saturday open event, and you feel really anxious or your life doesn't allow that, make sure you talk to your coach or that gym owner and see if they can make any accommodations for you, because the open is very stressful and there's a lot of anxiety around it, and anything you can do to ease those stressors and anxiety is going to be a positive thing for you and create a better experience. And hopefully that's what your gym owner or coach wants for you as well. So just ask. You don't know unless you ask, and if there's no possible way, you know, it is what it is. They are running a business, so good luck, and hopefully they can help you out. So the next piece is going into game plans. How the open works is we all watch the open announcement. when we watch the open announcement, keep in mind a couple of things. Now, there is a caveat to this, but typically the workout is done by elite athletes, and we get a sense of this is how the workout's going to go. But it's almost a false sense, because unless you are an elite athlete, the workout may not go that way for you, of how quickly a round or sets or reps get done, movement speeds and qualities, unbroken, not unbroken, things like that. And even sticking points within the workout, if you ever see any of those, it's not going to be the same for you unless you're a very similar athlete, which sometimes is not likely. It's got to be same body type, height, weight, things like that. So there's too many variables to just assume that you're going to be able to do it like these elite athletes. But it's good to watch, and it's good to get an idea and see. But then from there, I would ask, and a good tip is just to step away from things, especially Instagram and YouTube. I used to do tip videos, and I know why the tip videos go out is training companies, they want to have content. We want to help people. Coaches want to help people. But I'm going to step away from that this year, and I think a lot of training companies should, and just kind of keep that internally with their athletes, because it's just sensory overload. The open workouts can be very stressful, like we already mentioned. And if we're putting out a bunch of content of like, you should do it this way, you should do it that way, these types of things, and there's so many people talking about the workouts, and everyone's trying to get their video on YouTube or Instagram so people can get the views and stuff. And I know it helps, but I would argue through my experience now with working with a lot of athletes, it actually creates more anxiety and more information overload and a disconnect of expectations more often than not. And I understand that some people that doesn't happen to, totally fine. But majority end up seeing something or hearing something, and they decide they're going to do it that way. And it may be outside of the realm of their capabilities, historical data, and just overall not be a good idea for them. So what I'm proposing is you step back, you don't watch the how-to videos, and you formulate your own plan. Think about yourself, look at your own training history. And for example, let's say the workout comes out on Thursday and it's wall walks and toes to bar, 10 down to 1. Now that workout has 55 repetitions of wall walks and 55 repetitions of toes to bar. It's more of a sprint style workout, but you can definitely start going, okay, well, I've done workouts in the past that have wall walks and toes to bar. My functional volume and threshold of when I explode is around 30 reps of wall walks, and toes to bar I'm pretty good all the way up to 80 to 100 reps. So at 55, I'm gonna have to manage the wall walks and use the toe to bar as quote unquote like recovery. But that may not be the case for someone else. Somebody else might be very, very good at wall walks and not so great at toe to bar, or somebody's great at both and they're just gonna have to go really fast. And I know these how-to videos can touch on those points, but it's more about you and self-exploration. The other thing that I found is if you're part of an affiliate, watching some people go through things, or your peers, people that you either train with or that are in your training group and are very similar to you, you can watch them and how they approach it. That's going to be more helpful than watching a video or watching 20 videos and having too much information where you're left with, I don't know what I'm going to do anymore. All that being said, it's really about knowing yourself and creating a plan for you. Now, again, I don't want to discredit those videos. They're great. I've watched them. I've done those videos. But it's just a thing where I think we grow a little bit more by watching the announcement, looking at the workout, looking at old training history, and looking at ourselves and being introspective about our expectations, what we can do and what we want to achieve based on ourselves as an athlete, rather than setting the bar from somebody else or someone else's expectation. And then hopefully you have a coach that can go through these things of your competitive goals, what might you want to score, and really connect with them and bounce ideas off of them. Because I know that I know my athletes best, they know me best as a coach, and vice versa out there in the world. So utilize that relationship to perform at your best. The last thing I want to touch on is the mental approach and creating momentum. Now, the mental approach is just kind of what is the open for you. You want to think about that in terms of all the things we already laid out, of what's your overall goal, how far do you want to try and get, where are you as an athlete, and just define what that means, so then you can set expectations and just build your training around that expectation or efforts and attempts and the rest of your training as a whole. Once you do that, you can then talk to your coach, or you guys can talk to me about how you're going to build your training that week, what we're going to focus on, what if we're going to train through the open, if we're not going to train through the open, and just dictate those intensity levels. So if you're concerned about just getting into the top 10% into quarters, then the open should be your priority, and we really need to attack that and do the open and then recover and do some extra training that keeps the volume up, keeps your intensity up, and doesn't beat you up, so then you can do the next week and perform. So we're going to be looking at like a wave of intensity and volume around the open, where we want to peak for that week, taper back down, recover, peak for the next week, taper back down, recover, and so on until we finish it out and achieve the goal that we're looking for. For some of you guys, you already know that you're going to make the top 10%, and it's training for quarterfinals. So we're going to put our intensity and our effort into some more of our limitations, the things that we know are coming up into the quarters based on the equipment list, building volume around things like GHD, rope climbs, and pistols, and really working on those things to make sure that we have that under control and we don't come up to quarters with a surprise where we haven't built up 150 pistols and 150 GHD because we have seen those things in the past, and you do the weekend of workouts and get blown out by one of the workouts because of the high volume and the nature of the workout. So that can help you dictate where you're going to put your efforts mentally and emotionally, and then your expectations. Because if we know that you're just going to do the open workout to get through the top 10%, we don't have to focus so much on the open, and you don't have to stress and limit those anxieties like we already talked about, and do the open workout and move on with the rest of your training and move forward. Those are really good things to be thinking about. And back to it, if the open is your thing, you do want to try and really experience that anxiety and those things and the heightened state, so you can learn and grow and compete and figure a little bit about yourself. The last thing would be when we talk about anxieties, and this is a very small population, but I've run into it a little bit, is if you're the type of person that, let's say you've competed in the past before, or you've done the open, and you get high levels of anxiety. Let's say you throw up before an event, or you see a workout and you're concerned about the movements and it consumes you, and you're just like, oh, this is too much, and you get sick and you feel nauseous and those types of things. This could be a good opportunity to put yourself in microdosing of that anxiety in a controlled state. I would really encourage it if like the open is just your thing, or let's say you know that you're going to get through the open because historically you've done that, and you're going to go to quarters, but quarters is really anxious for you. This is an opportunity to maybe even prolong the anxiety. And I know that I said, hey, we got to decrease the anxiety. It's really valuable. But if you're somebody who's never really worked on combating the anxiety, understanding why you get anxious, working through it, learning those skills, this could be a safe time that won't hurt you, because you know that you're going to get to quarters or you're going to get to semis, and try to put yourself under enormous amounts of anxiety for a short period. So let's say you know that if you wait a day to do the open, it's going to really bother you. Then let's try to wait that day and see what we can do in that day to decrease the anxieties. Learn some tools and tactics about yourself and things that might help decrease that anxiety. And then you can implement those later on when it's a higher pressure situation or something that requires more stakes, something more high at stake, right? It's an opportunity to practice. And the only way you're going to get better at dealing with anxiety is by putting yourself in anxious situations. And this could be an opportunity to do that. That is, if you mess it up, you're not going to lose a whole lot, right? Because you're still going to qualify. The only thing you really lose is it stressed you out a little bit. Probably was pretty uncomfortable. But hopefully through that process, you're going to learn some skills and tools to deal with anxiety personally about that workout, and how you perform or what score you get, or anything of that nature. List everything down that you think would bother you. So that's it, guys. I hope that video was helpful. If it was, like and subscribe, share the video. If there's anything else you want to know about this to help you prepare and organize the open, we'd love to help you with that. Reach out and we can do that. But again, just to reiterate, figure out when to do the open, structure your training around that, what the goal of the open is for you, bring down some anxieties or raise some up if you need to, and we'll see you guys in the next video.